Fighting out of Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, Damien BJJ Black.
What's up, folks? Welcome to the Wireless Podcast. I'm your host, Damien Brown, UFC and Army veteran. I created the Wireless Podcast to cover all things sport, lifestyle, physical and mental health. It's not about me, it's about the listeners. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at Beatdown155 or subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Wireless Podcast, and hopefully we can produce some wicked content for you in the near future.
And today's special guest, thanks for joining us today, Coach, the OG of Australian MMA, Dan Higgins.
No worries. OG. Oh, old.
We're kicking it off. Kicking it off already. Did you like that intro there?
Yeah.
I don't know how you're a massive fan of the new age.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, seriously, thanks for joining me because I was actually a bit nervous about asking you on, to be honest with you.
It's all good.
I thought we'd kick off with, you've done some extraordinary things. I always say that if you're not inspired by the people that are around you, then you're around the wrong people. And so, just some of the stories that we've shared over time, but how you got into martial arts. I mean, you grew up in a small town, so it's not like there was 6 different martial arts to choose from and all that sort of stuff, but you found your way.
Yeah, no, well, it was a long time ago, 82, I think. So I was 7. And I've mentioned this before, but I come from what I consider a fighting family. My father had a successful stint as an amateur wrestler, and my uncle was a very good boxer, amateur boxer, won a lot of titles, and my pop was a keen boxer, and I even had a great uncle who was a catch-as-catch-can wrestler when it was real. So, yep, that was sort of how it was. I remember my pop sitting me on his knee when I was young and said, "What do you want to do, boy, wrestle or box?" And I was 5 or 6 years old then, so... I started with a little bit of judo, but back in those days, it was all about Bruce Lee and Kung Fu. So and I wonder what sort of grappler I'd be now if it didn't take me down that road. But long story short, they cancelled the judo, just lack of popularity, and I started with traditional Shotokan karate. And even though it's a small town, I lived in a small place called Byfield, so my old man and my mum had to do 80k round trips. Take me into town 3 or 4 days a week, and the karate instructor there, a guy called Chris Bulbrook, was world class, and he lived in a small town, so hit the jackpot in that regard. But yeah, I was pretty much doing 2 a days. So the only standard 2 to 3 days a week thing was from age 7 till about 11, 12, and then when I started moving into high school, she was 2 a days, and it's been like that ever since.
Yeah, and it certainly hasn't slowed down, has it?
No, it hasn't.
You train more than me.
That was the intro. That was the intro to martial arts, and it really was Shotokan karate, which I don't regret, by the way. Right up until my adult years. Yeah.
They say one of the first things you lose is explosive power, but still got to spin and kick like no one at 45, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It depends who you talk to, mate. It was lethal once upon a time.
Oh,
now it's bearable.
Once you got in, so like you would have went through with a bunch of kids playing football and stuff like that. You never got, like pushed, like the peer pressure where you're doing 2 a day of Shotokan karate and. You never sort of ever felt like to go the other way? It was just a family thing?
No, it was no pressure, don't get me wrong. My parents would have supported anything I did. But I'm a fucking weirdo now, but I've always been a weirdo, man. I just didn't have any interest in any other sport.
Yeah, that's cool.
Matter of fact, I had no interest in anything except martial arts. I don't know why, mate. I've got no idea. But I played rugby and that as I got older. But really, it was always fighting first, and I can't answer the reason why. I still can't.
No, I think that's fantastic. I mean, a lot of kids play football because their mates play football, You know, do the things they got to do because their mates got to do it.
I'm an exceedingly difficult human to be around. So one of the positives of that is I don't have much peer pressure.
Yeah.
No one ever.
I can't imagine too many
right from an
people
early age, no one really told me what to do.
will try to stand over you.
No.
Yeah. Well, and then you went to Japan. Now that was 17?
Yeah, straight out of high school.
Yeah.
So it was a year I turned 18, but I was 17 when I got there. So my parents worked for a resort that's still there now in Yeppoon. It's actually where me and my fee got married. But one of the unique, beautiful things about Japanese culture is they really look after their staff and they really value loyalty. So as a gift to my parents for working so hard for the company, they offered to sponsor me to go to Japan and learn Japanese. So by day, I went to what's called a Senmongakko, so it was a Japanese language school, and I was the only white honky. They were all Chinese. But by night, I managed to kick a lot of goals. With karate, I managed to be invited to train, and still, even to this day, so however many years that is, 20-odd years later, they're the top Japanese sports karate team in the country, or sports university. So to put it in a wrestling analogy, it'd be like being told it's okay to go and wrestle with the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yeah.
So I did that as a 17-year-old and got all the obligatory front teeth knocked out and bashed up and flogged. And first couple of months, that was just by the girls. So the standard was pretty high, but it had a profound... Japan had a profound effect on my character.
Yeah.
And really, I think most of us, if we were honest, are fairly influenced and shaped by whatever we're doing from that transition between teenager and man, or woman. So for me, that was Japan, and it's had a big effect on me. So
that's awesome. And just the training in general over there at that stage. I mean, we've talked about the 10K runs in thongs.
Yeah. We're running in thongs, flip flops, and it wasn't. It was,
And you weren't just training with people your own age. Like, you're training with everyone.
Yeah. Well, to put it, I was at the Honba Dojo, which is the world headquarters, and that's average Joe's. Well, that sounds more impressive on the surface of things, but really, that's just. It's like any other dojo. There's high-level dudes there, but there's also young kids and younger than me and soccer mums. And I'd only been there 2 weeks, and I got the call up by a guy called Kagawa Shihan, another big influence in my karate, and he's a he's a freak, 5 times world champion, and it's his uni, and he's still the national coach of the Japanese karate team, all styles team. So it was a big honour for me to get that crack. But it was 35 guys between 17 and 23 that had done nothing but karate since they were 5 years of age, and they were there on sponsorship, or scholarship rather, so they didn't have to study. All they did is fight.
Yeah.
It was unique. Most of them hated it. They couldn't believe I was going there voluntarily because the training was that hard that something like 95% quit after their 4 years at uni because I could spend hours telling you how brutal it was. It was savage. Yeah. And also that uniquely Japanese bastardization, like what they put me through off the mat, being a foreigner. Considering what young kids whinge and bitch about these days, it was fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
Yep.
Yeah, like corporal punishment, floggings.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
And it was 20 years ago.
Good times.
So
bring it back. No, I'm joking.
Well, I think that about the army sometimes. You can't
there was
swear
yellow
at recruits
card.
now.
There's no yellow card. Sorry.
Yeah, that's certainly an experience of a lifetime, but good or bad.
Yeah,
so
all good.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, whether it's the floggings outside of there or not, it's something you look back on and it shaped you as a person. So, and you couldn't eat enough carbohydrates, I bet, the rice. And then you came back and you lost about...
Interestingly enough, I had no money, which is a bonus when you're training 4 hours a day and going to uni.
Yeah.
And trying to keep up with you imagine being in a classroom of 30 people who are Asian and already read and write the same way. So everything, it was a massive learning curve. But anyway, I was living on a bowl of rice and 1 egg a day. And every now and again, the local baker, she felt sorry for me and swing me a loaf of bread for free. And my mum would send me Vegemite in care packs. That was it.
Yeah,
That's all
right.
I ate. And like, at a time when you should be growing, I left Australia I'm never been a big guy, 70 kilos, and I came back at about 59.
That's incredible.
Yeah, with all my teeth broken.
And you were sent over there as a gift to your parents.
Yeah. Oh, it was all self-imposed, which is
Yeah.
it's an indictment of how nutty I am.
Yeah, of course. But like you come home.
I could have any stage pulled the ripcord.
What was your mum's first thought?
She cried when she saw me off the plane at Rockhampton.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's probably just happy to see me, but I wasn't in a good way. I'd never drunk or anything, so the old rite of passage of going out and eating kebabs when you're half pissed at 3 a.m. The first time I got to do that was when I came home from Japan. I could only stomach 2 mouthfuls of a kebab, so that's how undernourished and malnourished I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's cool. It's cool, but obviously you still got a lot of Japanese friends, and
Yeah,
you still love that culture.
Oh, very much so. I mean, all cultures have got things to admire and things that, because by virtue of the fact you're not from that culture, there's things that you're happy you're not involved with either. But for the most part, I really admire their culture. Yeah.
And so at what point after that, I mean, you were 19, 20 when you came home? 20?
Just 19, yeah, just before 19.
So when did you decide that to go back to judo and start doing jiu-jitsu?
Well, I think, like most people of my era, if there's any around left that are doing the sport now, it would have been the old UFC 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I joined the army, and I had I'd always, because my old man was a wrestler, and I liked grappling, and I felt like I was a natural grappler despite all the striking. I'm not much of a striker. So I saw those things. I was in the army at Butterworth in Malaysia, and the old story, picked up VHS 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Next minute, me and the boys are wrestling our undies before in the
That
barracks.
had nothing to do with
at
the UFC
Butterworth.
videos.
Had nothing to do with that. I mean, in our full uniform. So trial and error, and I came back to Holsworthy, which is where I was posted, and I found a judo. There was hardly any BJJ then, maybe Anthony Lang. There was a couple of guys in Melbourne, John Will and all that, but it might have been 3 clubs in this country, and and by the time I got into MMA, there was only 4 or 5 of us fighting legitimately in the country. But so that was just that's how I went, oh well. And I mean, it's a lot different now. It's such a foreign concept, but you ask any old timer, they'll tell you that they just flagged whatever they did, whether it be karate or kung fu, they just went, that's all shit. I'm doing grappling. And BJJ or jiu-jitsu or grappling, whatever you want to call it, was a direct feeder system to fighting. You didn't get this is going out on social media, so
It doesn't matter.
I'll behave myself.
No.
You didn't get the man bun toting
Yeah.
sports jiu-jitsu enthusiasts that you get now.
Nothing's off limits.
No. So it was they were different. It was a different era and a different crew.
Yeah, look, I've seen an interview recently with Alex Volkanovski's coach, Joe Lopez, and he was talking about grappling back then when there was no grappling, like you say, there's only a few clubs. He's like, you got to go wrestle the local wrestlers and get your ass whooped, and then you got to go judo with the local judokas and get your ass whooped.
Correct.
Then you're trying to spar with the boxers and you're getting your ass whooped, and he's like, there was no jiu-jitsu, you just had to kind of find your way, but you wanted to do it because you seen it. Is that sort of where it started off with the actual jiu-jitsu part?
Yeah. I didn't really. My classical start with jiu-jitsu didn't happen. Another big influence was obviously Chris Haseman. So I met Chris along the way. So it was really more of I have that bit of a lineage, I suppose, of Japanese submission wrestling, catch wrestling sort of thing, which is what Hazy was all about. So I actually lived with him for a year or two and got my start there. So that was, in terms of submissions and MMA, that was my start, was with him. And the jiu-jitsu thing really, I say I started grappling in 96, but jiu-jitsu as its own art, as everyone would see it, was probably not until 2000, 2001. So but mate, even guys aren't having one-stop shops and understanding how to train correctly. Even when I went, I mean, that's probably a story for later on down the podcast, but even when I did the whole America thing, Australians for the most part, and we're talking early 2000s, were just hitting pads and then rolling. The MMA sparring and did no such thing as shoot boxing, or at least not I'd ever heard of. So I brought all that back from the States. Not saying for the whole country, but I certainly did for for the boys that I was coaching at the time. So
yeah, I mean it's that's no secret that you guys were ahead of the game as far as Australian MMA goes. At what point did you start competing and fighting?
I fought from 97 till 2007, 06. I don't think it was quite 10 years, but pro, yeah. And what made you go, besides the fact that you were slightly unhinged, what made you go, I'm going to get in a cage and fight back then? I mean, it's kind of accepted now, but... again, who cares, I suppose. Slightly a contentious, or what's the word? It might be a bit offend people, but if you're going to teach martial arts and you're getting up for real, then it's disingenuous if you don't know how to handle fear and you don't know that's pointing into the spear. Otherwise, you're just going through the motions. You may as well teach like a Taibo or whatever.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the main reason, is I wanted to know what I was made of, and especially back in those days with the rule sets and the lack, it was the Wild West. It was a fairly close representation to true combat. I thought, or well, at least I thought it was at the time, and that's why I did it. I didn't have any. Well, there was no social media. I didn't care if people rated me or not. I didn't care. I had no grandiose ambitions. I just wanted to fight to see if I could do it and understand what it was, because I knew that I would always teach martial arts and be involved in it, and if I'm going to pass it on, you've got to be fair dinkum about it.
Yeah.
Which there's a whole swag of them that aren't. If you're teaching martial arts and you've never been punched in the nose proper, then you're kidding yourself and you're kidding everybody else that's around you.
Well, that's not just martial arts. That's like a big thing in the world at the moment with
it's like I said it this morning at the gym. It doesn't matter if you're good as long as you appear to be good.
Yeah.
And you can appear to be good if you've got a silver tongue and a good social media platform. Then you can be whoever you want to be without actually being it.
Yeah.
So I like to think on the opposite spectrum of that.
I mean, you brought it up before. You went to Jackson's, big part of your journey. Now, obviously, prior to that, you were working with Steve Irwin.
Correct.
As his head bodyguard.
Yeah.
As much concurrently as fighting, but that's. I thought it's a good point to bring up.
As much as
it got you
in
there.
The MMA community, I'm the invisible
bodyguard.
Head bodyguard.
Yeah.
Well, I actually was his head bodyguard.
Yeah.
As opposed to what the common consensus is. And that's another story. That's another trip in itself. But I got towed up by one of Greg's guys in a fight flog royally, and but Greg was kind enough to pretend to tell me that I was awesome, and said, "I'll come back to America. You could be really good." And I, cool. And those two, I had them come into the zoo, and Steve Irwin and him met, and so my fights in America and that opportunity, which was fantastic, and Greg was awesome. It was a collaboration between Steve and Greg. So yeah.
That's cool, and that was obviously the old school over there as well, not the 30,000 feet.
No,
gym.
when I got there, I was according to the boys. I mean, I don't know if I know, but Keith and those boys said I was the first guy from out of town, and it showed that he belonged. So no one will ever take that away from me. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've pretty much got nothing financially from martial arts. And no real credibility, but no one can take away that I know that in my prime, world-class guys that everyone knows, treated me as their equal. And I thought I was pretty good. So I'm happy with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it was.
It's a good internal
The
feeling.
cage wasn't much bigger than your young fella's trampoline, man. No bullshit.
Yeah.
And it was a real, not like it is now.
Yeah.
Not like it is. Not that it now isn't awesome, but
Well, I mean, you know,
different.
MMA now, there's the discussion around fighter pays that happen, which, you know, everyone's talking about. And I always look at it that I'm lucky to have been in my era. Like, as in, I always refer back to footballers. And, you know, 40 years ago, they were bricklaying during the day, training twice a week and drinking piss at night, playing on the weekend, probably getting $400 to play.
And actually having real scrums.
Yeah,
Imagine
pushing in the scrum. And the hooker was kicking the shins of the guy across from him. Or he wasn't packing and he was throwing uppercuts.
It's funny you talk about pay. How cute that is. My first fight that I thought I was in the big time, I fought in the States. I got $200. Yeah, I thought I was a big deal.
Yeah. It didn't change much over the next 10 years, but
the only decent payday I got was the last fight I had because my opponent come in like 8 kilos overweight, and Nate Marquardt goes, make sure you get $500 for every pound he was over. So that's the only decent pay packet I ever got.
Yeah. I always talk about it like, you know, they whinge about they would have whinged about their pays back then as a football player, and then the sport developed, and the same will happen with MMA in 30 years' time. Minimum pay will be $1 million.
Yeah.
But that's the era that we're all in. But so working for Steve, what was that like?
Yeah, it was good, man.
You told me some good stories. Learning to surf.
Yeah, it was an interesting job. It might have been on back when people gave a shit what I had to say. I was on a couple of interviews I did, but how I got the job was pretty funny. I was misguided. Obviously, I had nowhere near the skill set to do it, but I was trying to get to the Olympics for, I don't know what Olympics it was, Atlanta. No, Athens, sorry.
2004?
Yeah, 2004, and you know, I was just doing security there, man, just regular security, and I said I'd do, because that was shift work and I couldn't get to training, and I was starting to panic, and the Olympic trials are coming up, and I just said to the HR there, I'll do anything, and they said, all we got is cleaning, so I said, that'll do. So I was cleaning the shed house in the big building there, and he came in on his motorbike and started talking to me about fighting and this wrestling ambition, and am I a fan of his of his TV show, and the retard that I am, of course, I said no. I said, not really. And he sort of went, oh, good answer, because he didn't like arse lickers or brown noses, which is good.
Yeah.
It was a good fit for me. And he goes, report to me tomorrow morning, I've got a new job for you. That was it.
Yeah, cool.
On his 125 in the shit house. And he was a beautiful man, mate. Good man.
Yeah.
He did great things for me. Plus, he had a really good fuckwit radar.
Yeah.
So that was good. We always agreed on. You can imagine being in his position, the amount of sycophants and snivellers that would grace his presence. So
yeah, for sure.
He was a legend, man. Good man.
That's awesome. And and he taught you how to surf, right?
Oh yeah. Well. yeah. He took great pleasure in watching me crash and burn. That's for sure. Like, after he passed away, I realised that the concept of learning is the concept of learning. So, if you want to learn to box, you shouldn't fight Mike Tyson straight away, and that was the surfing experience. Yeah. Short board, big waves. And he just sat there with his mates
and thought it was hilarious.
Just going, keep going, Tiger. But in reality, I needed to be half the size of the wave and twice the size of the board. So.
Yeah.
But he did take me out a lot, and I've still got some of his old boards at home. But
that's cool.
Yeah, he was good. We used to train all the time. He built a purpose-built gym for me and Kyle, and kettlebells, and we train from 6 a.m. till 8 every day before work.
Yep.
We'd surf, and then we'd train, then he'd go to work.
That's the ultimate situation, right?
It was,
as far as, you know, being able to train and having a boss that appreciates it.
Yeah, what it was with him, I think, is that he said it best. I said, "What, why are you kind of hanging out, and why am I hanging out with you?" And he said, "Oh, look, man, his words, not mine, but he said couldn't care if it was stamp collecting. What he really liked to see in someone who had is people who have the blinkers on for something, like he did for animals and conservation and all that sort of stuff. But he said, I can see you've got that. He said, I couldn't give a shit if it's stamp collecting or ballet.
Yeah.
It's a really strong positive character indicator. And I said, oh, cool, man, because I'm not the guy that people say nice things about often. So to have a superstar like that, take me under his wing and teach me a bit about life, and like a big brother, man, he was.
That's awesome. And obviously the link to the States there as well. And then you came back and started coaching.
No, I was coaching the whole time.
The whole time?
I've always coached.
Yeah.
I've never,
You would have coached in karate and stuff as well, right?
I've been teaching since I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
And karate, to be honest, my instructor left. I won 2 Australian titles as a junior, learning out of a book from my dad in the backyard.
Yep.
And I'd go to Adelaide and Melbourne or whatever and beat these big city kids. So I'm largely self-taught.
Yeah.
Largely self-taught. I've got, like everyone, I've got jiu-jitsu influences and wrestling influences but really, if you were to add up in terms of full-time instruction as a martial artist over 39 years, it's probably been 4 years.
On the mat as a student.
As someone teaching,
like someone's teaching a class. Yeah.
It's always been a week here or 2 days there or 3 weeks here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 4 of that, let's say 5 years, 2 of those years, what was your stint with as a young boy? But once he left, it was, I said, the old man just did a lot just out of a book and desire and heart. Well, I think I had heart.
Well, it's if you want to learn it, you'll learn it, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so as far as being a coach, it's, I obviously find it interesting now because it's something that I want to do for the next however many years. But what do you think makes a good coach? And that's a pretty broad question, but
well, it's multifaceted, man. Communication's important, connection, and content knowledge. They're all equally important. Probably like equal branches of the tree. There's nothing worse than teaching something, like you're a trainer or assessor or something, and you're teaching something out of a book that you have no content knowledge of. People can see it a mile away.
Yeah.
So if you know what you're doing, that's the big part of it, obviously. But also, that's why a lot of guys who are high-level athletes don't always make good teachers. You have to be able to transmit knowledge and cut to the core of things. And elite-level athletes, unless they can teach conceptually, if they just try to teach what they can do and you're an A-level athlete, then you're never going to be a good coach.
Yeah.
Because most people aren't A-level athletes.
Well, and everyone's got that different, like they either read, listen or do,
tactile
right?
learners.
So,
especially the older they get, the more they're tactile with feel and especially combat, man. It's such a visceral, emotional experience. So it's one thing to just teach martial arts for the 99% of people who will never compete, especially in a cage or a proper fight, dust up. But to get someone emotionally and spiritually ready for that, that's another ball game altogether. It requires a connection from a coach, emotionally and personally, to get the best out of that person and get them firing on all 8 cylinders. That's not easy. It takes time.
Yep.
Like a lot of these super coaches, they're getting guys that are already awesome, like whatever.
Yeah. But to build someone from that ground up.
Ground up's different. And I've done that. As much as a lot of people I've done that for won't want to admit my part, I've done that. Trained guys from nothing and made them world class in 2 years, 3 years, and they're pack-a-day smokers playing French cricket in the backyard.
Yeah. I don't even know what French cricket is.
Don't you know what French cricket? I'll show you later, bro. You haven't lived. I'll show you what French cricket is.
I know what cricket is.
It's better than cricket, put it that way. It's more interesting.
Yeah, right. No. So, I obviously, that's something that's as a coach is pretty rewarding, is seeing someone go from that to a world-class fighter and knowing that you were basically their only coach.
Yeah, I do miss it big time, man. Like I miss having young fighters, and they were good times. Good, like seeing the. For me, it was a good indicator that I should retire. I retired, pretty early, really, in my early 30s, because I just didn't feel anything for my wins and losses in the end. The last couple, not really any sense of achievement. But when the boys and the girls did well, I was over the moon. It was a real strong emotion, which guided me into coaching prematurely, maybe, or like in terms of putting all my eggs in one basket. I've always coached, but you can't be a slave to two masters. I firmly believe that. You can be good at both, but you can't be great.
I think, the feeling for someone who just loves coaches but has a connection with their athletes, that feeling of them winning, to me, and I've only done it for a couple, but to me, that's similar, if not the same, as me winning in a fight at the highest. When I'm, you said the last couple you didn't really feel your wins and losses, but the ones where you did, and then you see someone go on and win like an Australian title, that feeling of them winning it, knowing that you're in the corner, when it gets to that point where it felt the same as when you were fighting, then that's when you kind of know.
Well, I can only speak for myself that I don't, I've got a beautiful wife and great kids, and but I'm no big success story. But when I fought and I won, and you're dead on, so similar, so bear with me. When I fought and won, or when the boys fought and won big fights, I felt for those brief fleeting periods, a good couple of weeks afterwards, a real sense of what I'm supposed to be doing, and a real sense of being in the present moment, and a sense of achievement, which I haven't had that for years. So I do miss it, because it's certainly been a long time since I've competed, and I don't have like a full-time cadre of young killers anymore. So I do miss that. Like, oh yeah, you know what? I did a good job, Dan. What's the word? The self.
Like appreciation.
Yeah. Like you've done a good
satisfaction.
job. Self-satisfaction. Yeah. I miss that.
Yeah.
So
it's a good feeling.
It is.
I imagine with the athletes you had winning the titles and stuff like that, it would have been even better. But so backtrack a little bit, because I always find it super inspiring that, which is funny enough, we probably haven't even talked about it, but one of the big things about fighting in Japan, I was fighting in the UFC, and I still was like, at someday I'll fight in Japan before I stop fighting. But you tell us a story about Openweight fighting in Japan.
Really? Yeah, all right. Might surprise you to hear this.
Like winning or losing to me is nothing.
I'm not overly successful. So anyway, I fought in Japan, just in the rings organisation, and some of the fights are fucking comical, mate. I fought a guy called Bitsade Tariel from Georgia. He was 155 kilos and 6'10" or 6'8" or something like that. And the fight lasted like 21 seconds or something, but. And Hans Nyman, I fought here in Brisbane. He got assassinated a few years ago by the Dutch mafia, but he was a 120-something kid. Oh, whatever. Massive mutants.
Yeah.
40, 50 fights, and I'd had 4, and I was 24 or whatever. And to make that over 90-kilo weight class, because there was no middleweights or lightweights, I'd weigh in tracksuit pants with aerobic ankle weights on.
I think
I was about 88 kilos.
I think what's what's good about hearing it is it's not wins and losses, but it's so professional these days, and there's weight classes and rules and all this sort of stuff, and Japan still does that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a wild
so
west. They like the freak show. It's not that they want to see people get hurt. I don't believe it's that Bushido thing in this. They want to see people overcome
adversity.
Like I distinctly remember when they were patting me down in the ring with this gorilla. And they were all yelling out my name, man. It was in Osaka, just saying, come on, you can go for it. And naturally, I was a dead set crowd pleaser because I just got smashed. Like I said, in 20 seconds, it was all over. But more so than that, and when I fought the other fella, that kind of where you know you're going to lose, but it's how bad and whether you're going to get seriously injured. That's a whole nother, from a sports psychology point of view, I'd imagine that's a whole nother level. Like, it's not like, it's like, well, I'm going down here, but am I going to be permanently crippled?
Yeah.
And it actually paid benefits or dividends in the end, though, because when I started fighting in weight classes, I mean, I still get nervous and stuff, but not the same.
No.
The same when you're fighting. And nowadays, I know kids squabble over 500 grams and they want to fight easy fights to get their 6 wins so they can be on a contender series and whatever. It's a different era now, and I get it. The standards, obviously, I'm not bagging the new, like any sport, it's evolved, and I'd have no place fighting now with my skill set. But, in terms of that warrior spirit, I'm not sure it's any better now than what it was.
Yeah. What, when you know a guy's 155 kilos and you're faced with that kind of question that you're asking yourself from a sports psychology point of view, like, how bad am I going to get hurt? I know I'm going down. What makes you do it?
I don't know. Not stable.
Yeah.
Oh, not stable.
It's a challenge, right?
But I, if nothing else, I do have heart.
Some people want to compete, and then just there's that ultimate competition, just testing yourself and knowing whether or not you can overcome that.
Yeah, well, this was beyond. I mean, it's too much information or not, but I was waking up with night tremors and stuff, cold sweats, and I still remember the nightmares about getting taken out of the venue and ambulance and blah 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 blah. But you just do it, man, right? It's un-Australian.
Yeah,
you say yes, you do it.
Of course, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I get that 100%.
I'd like to give you some sort of spiritual, but if you're going to have a crack, have a crack.
Well, I don't think there's any textbook answer.
No.
Well, that's
for me. It was like you can't just rip in.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it's funny in Japan because you talk about that high of winning and losing. But when I won in Japan last, and you were there, I didn't know what the fuck I was saying, and I was looking at you like, "Can you let me know what they're saying?" Because I didn't know if I was winning.
No, that's right. You didn't remember. You asked me if you'd won.
I said, "Was that my name?"
Yeah, because they read out the scores, and I knew you'd won.
Yeah, and obviously,
but classic
reasonably
Japan,
good Japanese.
Like it wouldn't even be up for consideration anywhere else. But because he's Japanese, you're like, oh,
yeah,
I don't know how this is going to go down.
Well, Japanese decision, and I'm like, I was definitely, I felt like I convincingly won.
Of course you did.
Especially because you got that global rule set.
Yeah.
But then I'm looking across at you like, what's going on here?
Yeah. It was cool. That was I appreciate the opportunity to go. I caught up with people on that trip I hadn't seen in 25 years.
Yeah.
Like for dinner and stuff.
That's cool that after 25 years you can send someone a message and have dinner.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a really good trip.
Yeah, that's sweet. And so because I didn't bring it up before, but obviously second degree black belt in jiu-jitsu as well. We talked about it, you know what I mean? But as you just fucking people up anyway. But you got your black belt in 2013.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah, good
From
guess.
Lewis, yeah.
Had your brown belt for 8 years?
8 years.
Yeah.
Oh, road less travelled. I probably would have had it if I'd done the standard thing, but I was into fighting, man. So I got my blue-purple belt from Roberto Traven.
Yep.
And I got my brown from Luis Tanuri. And then you just lose contact and lose touch and all the rest of that good gear. And then I reconnected with him because I could see the writing on. I wanted to embrace jiu-jitsu as its own art form for a while and get the nuances of it and all that sort of stuff. So I reconnected with him and he come out and gave me my black belt in 2003 and then the standard, whatever it was, first degree in 2016 and second degree last year was from He's Master Tank.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the jiu-jitsu thing. But
and now, so for young athletes that are, I know you don't train a lot of guys competing anymore, only a few of us, but for young athletes, I literally got asked this like Wednesday. Gi or no gi, jiu-jitsu, for guys that want to do MMA? Never fought before?
Depends on the training environment they're in. I'd love to say you should start in the gi, but I still don't think that's necessary if you're going to fight. Because, but what the gi does do is it is true, it slows it down, and it takes the guesswork out of getting the nuances, because you do approach the game quite cerebrally in the gi. And it's not difficult to approach it cerebrally because you have to. Now, if you just start no-gi, there needs to be forethought, not only from the practitioner but also the instructor, to make sure that you're doing it at the right pace and in the right tempo. So for that alone, sometimes the gi is good. But do you need it for prize fighting? Absolutely not. No. My reasons for doing the gi now are obviously, I've said this many times before, and no one's done a bigger 180 turn on it than I have. I was the staunch no-gi guy, all about fighting and, surrounded, alpha males, and we're all strong and fast. We didn't, But in terms of, not that I teach in a big school, nor will I ever again, when you're trying to transmit, 99% of people are just trying to learn to defend themselves. And so from a self-defense purist point of view, and the joke we say is, no one's going to attack you in the street in a gi, but they're not going to do it in their fucking Speedos either, with 5-minute rounds and gloves. Yeah. So why I joke about that is using clothing, and using an individual's clothing against you. And if you're a female and you're being sexually assaulted on the ground, and you can use your hoodie. Not that I think you're a sex offender, Dan. You could use an individual's hoodie. And if you're going to use a piece of clothing to save your life and choke someone to sleep, you'll do so. Yeah. So the gi, that's the main reason I advocate the gi now is because you need a balance of both. Yeah. For self-defense, which is my only reason I do it now, is trying to find the truest form of fighting. And MMA is not a true form of fighting. And certainly it is more so than sports jiu-jitsu, but it's still not on the money. So I think a bit of gi and is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Yeah. But in answer to your question, young kids that are they just want to be prize fighters and they're alpha types, and I don't think it's necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, I think that'll do us for today. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's no worries, brother. I didn't even know some of that stuff, so thanks for digging deep for us. Cool. And hopefully we can do it again. Right, thanks for that.
Thanks, mate.